All right, everybody, welcome back to the Golf Podcast. This is episode number 303. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode as much as we did, talking to the guys from Game Like Training. They are truly revolutionizing the way that we practice. And I think that, again, for you guys out there who are limited on the amount of time that you have to practice, that's going to be your wheelhouse because you can get the most effective practice. So if you didn't get a chance to listen to that, go back in the Golficity app, or you can go to iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcast. Listen to episode 302. Let us know what you think. You can tell us in the Facebook group. But I think that one was one of the better episodes this year. I really enjoyed that conversation.
Yeah, great conversation with those guys. I think we're going to be meeting up with them in Orlando.
That's the hope. We were chatting with them yesterday. We're trying to get something pinned down.
So we might go through one of those challenges, which would be awesome.
I know. And I saw a couple comments of people saying they'd like to see you guys through those challenges, and we would love to do it just as much. So that's going to be fun. This week, we're going to talk about how to gain confidence with your long irons. I know a lot of you out there are gaming hybrids. Hybrid technology has come a long way. I've even put one in the bag, you as well. However, we don't want to move too far away from eliminating long irons altogether. They're still going to work for different people's game. In fact, I'm trying to remember who it was. There was somebody in the Facebook group just this week posted saying that he was hitting his 2-iron really well, and everyone was telling him to take it out of his bag. And basically I said, look, whatever works for you is what you should play.
Right.
Like at the end of the day, every golfer is going to be different. But what we want to do is at least make sure everyone understands all of the options available. And by understanding all of the options, you're not leaving anything potentially off the table. So here we'll go talk about those long irons, where the situations are that it might make sense to hit them, and then how to do it, with the most possible chance for success. We're also going to talk about some great videos that we've got coming up. We're going to talk about a new Twitter segment that we've got going, where we're going to try to get a little bit more, again, that two-way conversation from you guys out there. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. Before we do, of course, we want to thank our sponsor, Titleist. Guys, the new Pro V1 and Pro V1X have been redesigned for more speed, more precision, and more consistency than ever before. If you compare the two, the Pro V1 has a softer feel and a slightly lower ball flight versus the Pro V1X. Pro V1X flight's a little bit higher, has a little bit more spin and a firmer feel. Now, again, not one is going to be better for everybody. We went through the ball fitting this year. As we found, I was fit to the Pro V1, you were fit to the Pro V1X. I was getting, with a little bit of that lower flight, I was already getting a little bit of higher flight out of the way I hit the ball. So I didn't need a little bit more height for that landing angle. And you, in that case, you did, but It was different. It's a give and take. The good thing is there's something in there for everybody. So make sure you try them both out, see which ones are going to give you the best performance for your particular game. It's going to, revolutionize your game one way or the other. So both models, they provide that drop and stop greenside control, that lasting durability, and unsurpassed quality. They're also both available in yellow. So make sure you guys check that out. Prove how good you can be. Tee up the new Pro V1 or Pro V1X on your next round. Mike, you want to talk about our new segment here?
Yeah, I like this because just what you said. We could bring you all into the conversation. We're trying to do that. That's our goal. We want to make this more of a lively podcast, where we can hear your guys' questions, thoughts, concerns. And one of this new segment we want to do, we're going to call it the Twitter Tap-In.
Love it.
Right?
Love it. Yeah.
So we put out our first Twitter Tap-In, which came in the form of a question. And the question was, where did your golf game improve most in 2019 and why?
And look for these. Make sure you're following us on Twitter and look for this tweet every Monday.
Every Monday we're going to put it out there.
We're going to put it out. We record the podcast traditionally on Wednesdays. So then what we're going to do is we're going to get everybody's responses here, and we'll start to dive into a couple of them, and hopefully we'll get a good conversation going. So sorry I cut you off there, Mike. What was that again?
No, I was just going to say that, we're going to talk about all things but questions. It doesn't have to always be questions or polls and things. I just want to get as much as you involved. So jumping into this one, where did your golf game improve most in 2019? We'll just start with it. First answer was Mike. Mike Ryder said, my putting was very good. I finally found a putter that feels and looks great to my eye, the Scotty Camera Futura 5 MB. We talk about how, clubs being aesthetically pleasing is important as well. But, putting, Frank, I'm going to let you take this one because putting, you came a long way this year in putting.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really comes down to putting the work in.
Yeah.
It started for me with a lesson. And I always think that that's a great place to start. I mean, we can self-teach ourselves a lot of things, but sometimes it just takes the the eye of a professional working with a pro. I worked with Kevin Sprecher. And, there's an investment there. But in a case like something with Kevin, one session, I was able to learn a lot about my putting stroke. I was able to verify that the putter that I was using was the best for my game, at least at this moment. And then he gave me some stuff to work on. And then after that, it really was the work. And then if you saw in the video we did at Hudson National, I recapped it a little bit with him. We're deeper into the season. We're a couple of months past the lesson at that point. And Kevin and I told him, I'm starting to see it. It takes time. With anything, it's going to take some time. And I said, I'm starting to see it. I'm starting to see the gains. And he said, what you told me is the proper way to go about it. You're doing a little bit each day.
Yeah.
Which I've got that putt out mat in my home office. And it's just a matter of 5 to 10 minutes of working on it every day. Rather than just like one long session every month or something like that. I find that when you really want to improve something, you got to do a little bit at a time. It's kind of like anything, fitness, whatever. So my game has been paying off for it. I've been putting better. You saw some of the later videos we did this year, whether it be at Patriot Hills or whatever. You start to see me knocking in some putts, which you weren't seeing in the videos earlier in the season. So I'm feeling good about it, and I think that's a great spot. If you can improve at one area of your game, that's a great place.
Frank got hot late in the year.
Yeah, there you go.
I think we should make it mandatory in the new space. Like when you get to work, you have to roll like 10 putts on the putt out, and then maybe take like 10 shots with long irons in the sim before you go.
There you go. Or like talk about simulating pressure. You've got to nail like 10 putts in a row before you can go home.
Yeah, there you go. It's like 8:15. The kids are still stuck at school.
Oh yeah, we could get in big trouble for that
time.
one.
All right, let's move on here. That was a good one from Mike. I'm going to just do Robbie here. Robbie's got straighter off the tee in 2019, and he said what helped me was a system I looked into by Eric Cogorno. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, Cogorno. I learned a lot from videos online, lots of practice on my own, at the range and at home. I was able to break 100 for the first time ever. Now I'm going to try to break 90. So huge congratulations to you,
Big
Robbie.
Milestone.
That is big.
Big milestone. When you first break that, and you start to realize like, look, this is a game that I can definitely do. It's just a matter of putting that work in.
Straighter off the tee, though, will lead to much lower scores.
No doubt about it. We've talked so many times here about the real way to score is to avoid trouble. And if you can just put that ball in the fairway, you're avoiding the things that cause the extra strokes, things like being off the fairway stuck behind a tree or government OB or whatever it may be. If you can do those types of things where, sure, it looks great to hit a straight drive down the middle, but more importantly, avoiding trouble. Right. So of trouble is where things when you see guys who are scoring really well, it's because they're avoiding a lot of trouble, more so than they're doing anything too fancy out there. Sometimes we call it like boring golf or whatever, just hitting fairways and greens and that's just doing whatever. But that's the way the scoring happens. Jamie said finally got some lessons this year, so everything is improved except putting. He says that still needs work. And look, there's a lot of things to work on in the golf game, so you have to kind of segment it out. But what I would say, my advice, Jamie, would be if the lessons helped for other areas, take a lesson focused on putting. Make that be maybe your next thing, your 2020 goal, because that's something that I did, like I said earlier, and it's really, really helped.
Yeah, for sure. What else we got here?
Robbie also, I don't know if this is a different Robbie, but
Robbie,
he said started golfing again after 10 years. That's an improvement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Robbie, welcome back.
Didn't you start after 10 years of giving it up?
I got back after 10 years, and it's both a rewarding and frustrating experience, because when you're away from the game, anybody who knows, if you've been away from the game for a little while, you have some rust you need to knock off. When you really get away from it, it is frustrating that first season, maybe those first 2 seasons back, because you were capable of playing. There's a certain degree of it's like riding a bike. You can get some of it back, but there's still a degree where you're not playing the way you were. I mean, 10 years is a long time to be away from the game. But if you can do, basically my take on it, what I did was use that as a foundation and then start to kind of relearn the game in ways that maybe you didn't realize things 10 years ago. There's been a lot of revelations for me of saying like, oh, I wish I knew this when I was playing back then. So there's a lot of reward to it as well. There's a lot of excitement that comes with that.
I like this one from Nick because he was very specific here. wedge play, dialed in from 140 out. He's averaging less than 14 feet from all my distances inside 140. So I don't know if that was a goal for him to go out and work on proximity or from some of those 140 shots, but I like how he was specific here, because that's something that I want to do more of. I want to do wedge work, dial it in from 140 out and just be lethal there, because we find ourselves in that position a lot.
Yeah.
And we never think about it, putting ourselves in that play, in that situation, more like the game like training, the pressure situation. I want to get good at being 140 out in the rough, in the first cut, in the fairway, and then get dialed in just like Nick here. And
that to me is also, it tells a lot. You read between the lines of, again, how far like technology and stat tracking have come, because this is a type of stat that we might have only heard, pro tour players talking about only a couple of years ago, when they've got people tracking their stats for them, right? To this level. I mean, 140 out, knowing that exact number. Now we've got these great stat trackers. You see us using them in ShotScope or whatever you're using. We're able to do a little hands off and get that information. And with information, it's the key to getting better, because we know these areas and we can really dial it in. Like I said, information on this level was something that only the pros had previously. Speaking of trainers too, Gary says, putting, thanks to lots and lots of practice with Putt Out training aid. Putt Out, you guys know we talk about it a lot, not a sponsor of the show or anything like that. Just a product we've used. We love it. And I think the reason I like it most, it's simplicity, but it's the fact that it is addicting. And when I say here Gary's saying is lots and lots of practice, that's the key. So I think if you're going to do that, you've got to do it in a way that makes the practice fun. With the guys at Game Like Training, they were talking about making it almost like a video game, and you've got to beat the next level. There's a lot of things you can do with that, with Putt Out, where especially if you have the mat, you can do from different distances, and it almost becomes like an addicting game of trying to hit that perfect putt where it stays just perfectly. So anything like that can get you in a way like having fun and enjoying it is going to be something that leads to more practice, and more practice leads to getting 100%. Better.
Tom said he made less bogeys in 2019. Tom, cheers to that.
Yeah.
That'll always make a scorecard.
That always helps.
More putting. I like seeing these. I like seeing there's a lot of people who got back in the game. Big Double D got back into playing the first time in 8 years. Another guy said he's played a lot more this year than he's played last. Started playing again after a few years, so that's a big improvement. So
Alexander says putting, knocking down those 4-footers to save par.
Yeah, so you see some themes.
Putting is a thing, man. When it comes to scoring, if you want to score, work on putting.
This is an interesting question, because when you get these themes where these consistent theme like putting, it kind of teaches me like, all right, maybe I need to work on that next year.
Yeah.
Because all these other people are improving from putting and things like the 140 out. So I love this exercise. I love going through this. It's
fun. So look for that. Look for that segment, the Twitter tap-in segment. We're going to post something with that hashtag the beginning of every week. You guys hop in there, whatever it may be. We're going to do whatever, comes across our mind of what we want to talk about, a question, whatever, like Mike said, we'll throw it out there and we'll highlight some of them here on the podcast. So look for that on Twitter every week. Also want to talk about just like some general stuff of coming up. We've got some more great videos that are going to be coming up. You can get those in the Golficity app, obviously, or wherever you watch the videos, YouTube, Facebook. But we're working right now on putting the finishing touches on our round at Baltusrol. That was something that was just an incredible honor to get to play there, to get to videotape it. Because again, as much as we love getting out there and playing, we really love having the ability to somehow share it with you guys.
Right.
So it did take some string pulling and things like that. And it was something that was in negotiation for about a full year at least, to try to get out there and do some video. Some limitations on it. We did have to shoot the whole thing on our iPhones, but whatever. We don't care as long as we find a way that we can share it with you guys.
Still coming out great. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had a lot of fun with that. We're going to be sharing that. We also, we've got some stuff, just kind of unreleased stuff from throughout the year, that we're working on getting out there. We had a really fun par 3 skins match that you and I did in the middle of the summer. And we're gonna be dropping that really soon.
That's coming out soon. That was our first ever skins match together.
I think
because we've always played like match play.
Yeah, match play.
So this is our first.
And to play it on an 18-hole par 3 course was something else.
Yeah, that was cool.
I mean, I've played 9-hole par 3 courses, but not 18 before, and it's just like the par 3s just keep coming.
They keep coming, man.
It was a great way to work on the short game. We had a lot of fun with it. and let's just say it has a really suspenseful ending. It's a lot of fun.
It sure does.
So that's gonna be cool. We played Packanack recently.
That's right.
In just a couple of days, we're gonna have our 2019 best of Roundup, which we were able to film down at the YouTube space in New York City. Again, that was a real treat. That was cool.
I was going to joke with you guys and say, give you an idea to binge watch the YouTube channel over the break. We'd appreciate that. We've got a lot of great things on there. But this episode you're talking about, Frank, there's so much great footage packed in there. It summarizes our year in review.
Yeah.
With some great footage in there. So definitely check that out.
We went back and we reviewed our 10 favorite golf courses of an epic year of playing some incredible golf. Or at least incredible golf courses. I don't know if the golf is so good from our standpoint, but we went through, we did some bonus ones and we highlighted them. And then all of those videos you'll be able to see, they're all on the channel and on, the app. So that's really cool. And the last thing is, threw together a special bonus episode of the Scotland series. There was just so many clips in there that we were laughing at, and they didn't quite make the final cut of the videos. But we're like, we just can't not share these. So
it's good.
There's some fun stuff in there, some bloopers, things like that. So if you haven't seen that yet, that's out there. That just dropped actually this week. So that was fun. A little bonus episode. And we're hoping in 2020 to do a lot more of those types of travel series. We've got a couple of different places lined up that we'd like to get to this year. So even some international travel is starting to work its way in.
Stuff we can't talk about yet, but it's getting worked in.
Because once we finalize those details, you guys will be the first to know about it. That's for sure. All right, Mike, what do you say we do a word from our sponsors? Then I want to talk about this. We're going to talk about how to gain some more confidence with your long irons, which we know are difficult clubs to hit, but if you can get them, they're going to be some real weapons in your bag.
100%. All right, let's do it, Frank. Guys, just want to thank ShotScope. The ShotScope V2, it's the world's smartest golf watch. ShotScope has over 40,000 courses mapped, and they offer incredible stat tracking technology. You know what's funny? If there's a course in there that's not mapped, you could just reach out to customer service in advance, and it'll probably be mapped by tomorrow's round.
Yeah,
I've heard stories of that before. They're so quick. The customer service is fantastic there. So check it out. Of course, it also has the laser-like GPS. We've tested the distances on a rangefinder. Super accurate. It's probably the most accurate GPS watch I've ever used. Frank, I know you can agree. All the data of your golf game is at your fingertips. It is a stat tracking device. So check it out. Get yourself a ShotScope V2 by visiting shotscope.com/Golficity. You can use the code V2Golficity at checkout, but right now they've got this festive offer, this holiday offer. I'm not sure if it's passed yet. I think it's still probably going to be in play throughout the end of the calendar year, so there might be a few days left. $119 for the watch. So check it out.
How are you going to beat that?
Yeah, you can't.
It's unbelievable.
You can't.
Also want to thank FootJoy. Over the course of a round, you can face a lot of different weather conditions, from that early morning frost, the midday sun, especially in these transitional seasons like fall and spring, where it's just like summer. Sometimes summer days, it's hot all day.
Yeah.
But like I remember like the Ironman of golf when we played. But these other ones, you start off and then it can warm way up. Layering is the way to go. I think we recently did our video where we played, make everyday video, playable video.
Yeah.
And one guy was like, "It's so cold. How are you? You guys didn't look like you were wearing that much. How are you warm?" I'm like, "It's about the layering."
That's right.
So you got to check it out. They've got those base layers, mid layers, outer layers. If you can do that proper layer, you can be comfortable when you're out there. So they've got those performance products that are specifically for golf. They allow you to play comfortably and play well. And part of that comfort is making sure things aren't too bulky. So there's a lot of science that goes into keeping things warm without being too bulky. So you've got, like I said, you got those base layers, the thermal mid layers, the full zip fleece jackets, rain jackets. If you layer properly, you can really adapt to those different situations. Especially, nobody wants to have like, you've got one bulky thing on, you're too hot, you're sweating out there now that the sun comes up, and you can't take it off because you only got a t-shirt, whatever it may be, or a short sleeve polo. Layer properly, you're gonna benefit from it. It's gonna, not only are you gonna look good, we don't want to look good out there, you are actually going to, your golf game's gonna benefit from it. So you can build your own layering system to combat those weather conditions at footjoy.com/MEDP. Make everyday playable. Footjoy.com/MEDP. And Mike, we just got the 2020 catalog.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is there's some fire in there.
So much fire.
There's some fire. And we were just like circling everything.
We're going to look sharp.
I felt like my kid with her Christmas list. I gave her like a little pamphlet.
They circle everything, right?
Everything.
Yeah.
I'm like, how am I supposed to decide what to buy? She literally, the longer she had with this thing, she started. So that was, and then I'm like, I can't knock her because I'm the same way with this foot joint catalog.
Yeah,
I circled everything. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this. Let's hop into this week's topic. And again, you can get to the show notes by going to golficity.com/episode 303. We will link to just a great article recently on Golficity where we ran through some of these different tips, and a lot of what we're talking about here, you can dive into it a little bit deeper. But again, let's first talk about the reason we're even discussing this. I know you don't see the 3, 4 irons, 2 irons, 1 irons, the way you did a generation or two ago.
Sure.
They're starting to be less and less in the bag. I'm even finding that they're less and less available. There's certain sets that you can buy now that it's harder to get the 3 iron. You know, they come 4 iron and down because we're seeing, like I said, a lot of technology develop and a lot of also popularity with the hybrids. And you and I have both had success with it. I used to hit my 3 iron incredibly well. And it was our fitting with Kevin Sprecher where he really forced me. I'm like, I don't want a hybrid. I kept telling him. He's like, listen, things have changed with them that can dial them in. He's like, just hit it.
Yeah.
So I started hitting the hybrid. I ended up taking the 3 iron out in favor of the 3 hybrid because he's like, let's put it this way. I put this hybrid in your bag. Is there anything with this hybrid that you can't do, you know, with it that you would need the 3 iron for? And we're kind of running through. I'm like, no, I guess every shot that I play for the 3 iron now, I could. And I was getting a couple more yards and a little bit more forgiveness from it.
Right.
So it was just like a must play. But
right.
Not so much with the 4 iron. The 4 iron is still performing better for me than like a 4 hybrid would. So it's still good to know. And it's also good to leave those options open. That doesn't mean because it worked for me, it would work for you. Like go through the proper fitting like we're always harping on. Try them both. Try is what it comes down to because I wouldn't have known that the hybrid worked if I didn't try it. So you go through them, you try them, you see what works. It's just the most important thing is I just don't want people to get those blinders on where like they don't even entertain it because there are ways you could do it. And there are shots that you can hit with those long irons that might not be possible with the other clubs. So as long as you've got the basic skill level to hit a long iron, you know, there is something to gain from at least seeing if it's going to work in your bag and try it. But at the end of the day, no matter what, I think this goes with any club, but especially with the clubs that are harder to hit. In order to use them effectively, you've got to have confidence in them.
Yeah, sure.
So if you've got a club in your bag that you've got zero confidence in, we've talked about this before, ways to get confidence. And even we did an episode on your most hated club.
Yeah.
Remember? So there are ways you can get confident in it, but there's also comes a point of decision making where it's saying like, is it just taking up space in my bag? And that's a fitting thing. It's like, maybe I want to try something else.
Right.
However, there are ways you can become more confident. And if it's a smart club for you to play, and if you can play it well when you are confident, then here's how we're going to talk about how you can get to that point.
First one's kind of funny. I like that. I like the title.
Yeah. Yeah. This would be like what my wife would say that I should be doing with her. Spend some quality time together.
Go spend some quality time together with your long iron.
Yeah. But you know how much she would kill me if I was like, listen, honey, I'd love to take you out on a date this weekend, but I got to go spend some quality time with my long iron.
I'm going to bring my 3 and 4
You would never see me again.
Yeah.
I would be dead. So, but kidding aside, it really does come down to getting some practice time in.
Mm-hmm.
We've said this before. We said, don't go out there and hit the type of clubs or play the type of shots on the course during your rounds that you don't know how to play or you haven't experienced. Before you start to use something on the course, you really need to put the time in with it on the range. No matter what club it is. Sometimes it could be a new wedge in your bag or whatever it may be. But a lot of times, a lot of us are guilty of this and we wonder, why do I hit my 7 iron so well and I can't hit my 4 iron? Right. But then you think about what is your routine? Really break it down. What is your routine when you go and you hit the range? Are you just going out there, warming up a bit with hitting a bunch of mid irons, then working on some wedge work and then maybe pounding a few drives and then just skipping over these? I mean, I know I've been guilty of it so many times.
Same.
Sometimes I'll go up as high as the 5 and then just completely neglect to hit the 4.
Yep.
And then you're like, why can't I hit it on the course? You don't have any time spent with it. You don't, you're not, there's no that familiarity. There's not, and that's what the comfort level is, the confidence. And it really comes from doing it. So make it a point. Make it a point. I've done this a lot with a pre-shot routine where I just lock it in. Like, this is what I'm going to do as part of my pre-shot routine. You can have a practice routine where you just say, this is what I'm committed to. And maybe even write it down. I've been doing different types of like goals I've had, like exercise stuff. I've been putting them in my phone and then putting a little check mark when they're accomplished. You could do a similar type of thing with the range. Instead of trying to make the decision on the fly when you get there and you've got the bucket sitting in front of you,
Right.
maybe the night before you think, I got a range session tomorrow. Jot down on your phone or physically with pen and paper, these are how many shots I want to hit with each club, and then check them off when they happen. So you hold yourself accountable rather than going in there with no plan.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is you go back to that comfort zone and you're driving home from the range. You realize I didn't even hit a 4-iron while I was there.
Right.
So doing that, you can bring that more variety to your practice routine. It'll make you a better golfer in general, but it's also going to make you more familiar and therefore more confident with your long irons.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think a lot of us, and I'm guilty of this as well, I treat the range as not so much practice, but like a feel good for my golf game.
Yeah.
And that's where I'll get sucked into going there. And of the 80 bucket of 80 balls, 40 of them will be the 100-yard pitch shot to that green. And I'm just feeling good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for what reason? I feel good about my game. Okay.
Look, I get that it can be a confidence builder.
Sure.
But what you are is you're building
challenge your
confidence
game in practice.
in that shot.
Exactly.
So now think about it. You go out and you're faced with that shot. You're like, got it. You're like, no problem. You go up, you execute. Yeah. You're not worried.
Confidence level's high.
Right.
100%.
So now imagine if you were able to put that work in with other things, the confidence is going to happen there too.
Yeah, I almost feel like you don't even bring those clubs to the range. Like you said the night before, if I know it's going to be long irons, just show up with the 4, 5, and 3. Maybe the driver and the wood. Maybe work 5-iron to driver.
There is nothing wrong with like a hyper committed session.
Yep.
It's where you just go and work. We've talked about this before. If there's a club you're struggling with, going out and just working on that club, or if you're looking through your stats and, we talk about the importance of tracking your stats. If you're looking through them and you see a hole in your game, it's something that really needs work, you could commit to it. And if for you commitment is like leaving the other clubs at home so you can't fall back on them, by all means. Yeah. But I'm saying in general, with your practice sessions, just working them in more often.
It's like Eddie with Duffs to Darts. Guy would be hitting wedge birdie balls in a parking lot on his lunch break, but he was committed to that short wedge shot. So I give him props for that. Not many of us are doing those. What do you call them? Hyper focused practice sessions.
Yeah.
No, we're just bringing the whole bag running
and
through it.
It worked for Eddie. He brought that handicap down.
I know.
He really did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you guys didn't see that series, go back in the Golficity app or on golficity.com. Just type in Duffs to Darts, and he just did a monthly check-in as he worked towards his goal of lowering his handicap and what he did. And you really see that the work translates to getting better.
Sure.
There's no doubt about
100%.
it. Another thing you could do moving from the range to the course is you can dedicate a round to long iron work.
No, we did that. Sort of.
We did because we're playing from the tips, right? And here too, sometimes you got to differentiate, at least in your mind, the difference between a practice round, a true practice round, and a round where you're going out there, let's say, to post a score for your handicap.
Mm-hmm.
And we see this even with the tour players. And on Tuesdays, they have their practice round, and they're out there, they're working on they're on the course, but they're working on specific things. They're dropping a couple balls in different areas and hitting different shots. Now, they're doing it a lot of ways to get ready for the course, for the tournament. Mm-hmm. But you can use a similar type of philosophy and say, all right, this is going to be a practice round. And one way to dedicate that is just say, as part of this round, I'm going to hit a lot more long irons. And a good way to do it, like Mike said, you could move back further tees so that your approach shots are going to be longer irons. But what I like doing is play the same tees, but play the long irons off the tee.
Right.
And if you do that, you're forcing at least X amount, maybe 12 to 14 shots in that round that are going to have to be played by a long iron. So again, going in with a plan, you say, I'm going to hit my 3 or 4 iron off of the tees for par 4s and par 5s. The other thing it's going to do is, because you're going to come up a lot shorter than you did with your driver, it's going to most likely force a second long iron shot, mm-hmm. especially on the par 5s.
Sure.
So now you're getting 20, maybe 30 long iron shots in a round. And that is going to start to really, that's a forced practice and forced to play with it. So there too, I think you're going to see the familiarity happen and it's on the course. So it's course situations that if you're later faced with when it's not a practice round, you could say, this is familiar. I've hit this before.
Yeah, there's something I would love to try. I love to try. I mean, we don't have to go back to the tips. Like you said, 5 iron off the tee, long irons off the tees, forcing long irons in. That's something I would love to do. Even leave the driver and the hybrids and the woods at home.
Yeah.
Because just force myself to use them and definitely put them to work.
Well, one way we did it is when we did the 3-club challenge.
That's right.
So we both.
I think hybrid was my.
You had a hybrid in there. I had, at the time, I was playing a 3-iron, I think. So I had a 3-iron with me, but it forced me to play it. Let's talk about leaving clubs at home.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what you're going to do is you're going to end up hitting like 20 shots or more.
Yeah.
And if a couple of those turn out well, those are confidence boosters. And they're also proof to yourself that if you're in the situation late, at a later time when you're playing around that counts, so to speak, you can execute it.
I think it takes a little bit of a groove. Like I think once you get into a little groove with a particular club, you start to feel good with it. I think confidence starts to come pretty quickly.
For sure.
So this
and the groove comes from from forcing yourself to get out there and work it. Yeah. Work on it. And then another thing too is play to your strength. This is something that I think can be super beneficial across the bag, but especially with a club that you're having a little more trouble hitting. If you have a natural shot shape, especially like I said with these clubs, just try to find a way to continue to work with your natural shot shape instead of against it. So for instance, I'm a draw player, right? It's difficult for me to hit a fade, but I can do it with a lot more success with the clubs I'm more comfortable with. Once you get to a club that's a little bit more difficult to hit, let's say a 4-iron versus a 7, it becomes a little bit more of a challenge to go against your natural shot shape. So for me, it's harder for me to hit a fade with the 4-iron than it would be to hit with a 7-iron. So here too, especially when you're getting used to it in the beginning and you're learning it, you're getting that familiarity, don't make it harder on yourself by saying, I'm going to, this is a shot where I need to play a fade here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Try to see, again, if the shot, direction allows for it, just use your normal shot shape, especially in the beginning, and not try to get away from it. I
think a lot can go wrong when you try to change your shot shape for things, especially with a long iron.
Yeah.
But we are faced with that situation. If, I'm a fade guy or a slice guy when it goes wrong. So if I'm approaching a hole dogleg left, I'm going to try to play a draw. Yeah. And I don't have that. But that's when everything goes out the window. My swing changes and everything. Right. Confidence changes, all that stuff. So,
and look, we know that there's all levels of golfers who are listening to the show. And if you're the type of golfer who's playing at that scratch and high level and you really need to be able to work the ball in a different direction, then by all means.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But it's still that awareness of it. And especially for and I think once you're achieving that level, you're not struggling as much with a 3 or 4 iron as maybe somebody who's a mid-level handicapper, obviously, but it doesn't go against the fact that it is a more difficult club to hit. So again, just being aware of it, maybe not trying to do too much with a club that's already a little bit more of a challenge to hit can be important. And then another tip would be see a professional club fitter. It's hard enough to hit a perfectly fit long iron. When you don't have something that's fit well, it's going to be even harder. And I think this is the greatest example of this was us trying to hit that Jack Nicklaus 1-iron in that 1-iron challenge that we did.
Yeah.
What I found, it was the shaft. I mean, this is a club we bought off of eBay, right? God knows what even shaft is in it, but it's got so much flex in it.
It's a TV antenna.
Yeah. And I remember somebody had, and again, I should start jotting these down because I feel terrible when I don't remember people's names for what did this, but there's just so much that comes across my feed throughout the day that unfortunately, sometimes I just remember concepts and themes, but I think this was in the Facebook group as well. And someone had asked, is it possible that the shaft that's in my club is part of the culprit of my slice? And it's 100%. Yeah. We talk about shaft being the engine of the club. This is something we've learned in the past 2 seasons, the amount of club fitters we've worked with. But the shaft can make a huge difference. And there too, I had a situation where it's taking a club that's already very difficult to hit. And I don't hit a slice really or a fade. Usually my miss is a hook. I have a draw and my miss, it can become more dramatic or a pull, hook. Here, the ball was just tailing off to the right on me because it was just such a more flexible shaft than what I'm used to. It's just the way that it was coming through the ball. So it's very possible that if you are really struggling with a long iron, it could be that you need to dial it in a little bit better with a fitting. And it might just be something as simple as a shaft change, because these are where especially things like a shaft being the wrong flex, the results of that issue are going to become more dramatic as you work up into these longer shaft clubs, like a three iron,
Right.
versus a 7-iron. Maybe you could, it's not quite the right shaft, but you could still make it work. Here, you're going to see that like kind of like blown up, even more so. So take the time, go to a professional club fitter. I still think it's so worth the investment. It's not something you have to do all the time, but if you can go down there every once in a while, check in with your bag and see what you can do to kind of look at it and improve it. And you never know. You may walk out of there with something that's equally valuable.
Right.
And that's just validation.
Yeah.
A good club fitter is not trying to sell you things. And these are the guys who usually charge something for the session. Again, it's not free, but you're paying for what you get. You're getting a value out of it.
Exactly.
So if you go in there and the guy comes out and says, no, I like this for you, this is the right fit, you come out of there with at least that confidence where you can say, okay, I've ruled that out as being the issue with me not being able to hit this club. Let me go back and work on all the other things that we were talking about.
Right. But
the other might also be true. Guy be like, dude, no matter how much work you put in, you're swimming against the current because you got the completely wrong shaft in this thing.
Yeah.
Right? We've seen both happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a really important thing to take a look at it. And look, let's say this, having an absolutely perfectly fitted club is not a magic bullet where all of a sudden every shot's going to be pure.
Right.
There's still the work that goes in, but there's just two sides of this equation. And one side is getting the equipment dialed in, and then the other side is getting your ability dialed in. Right. And this is the way you can kind of do it by going through the two of them.
It makes total sense. And you and I, we have no excuse now. We are completely fitted.
Yeah.
Through the bag, through the ball.
That reminds me, we were chatting about this before we went live. I have a mixed bag for the first time ever.
That's right. So
I'm actually playing T300s for my 4 and 5 iron and T200s through the rest of the bag because, and so we're working with this with Kevin Sprecher, he's like, the T300s offer a little bit more forgiveness. Mm-hmm. Why not get a little bit more forgiveness in the clubs that are most difficult to hit?
Yeah.
So it ended up working really well for me. So again, that comes back to the importance of a fitting. Right, I wouldn't have had that other inside. I've never had a mixed bag before.
Right. I mean, and those clubs, they do look a little different when you're looking down them, but it's not a complete difference than jumping from a hybrid to an iron, right?
Right. And Titleist did do a really good job of making the whole line T1, 2, and 300 kind of work together because they know that people are going to be mixing their bags. Spreck was even telling us that he's worked with some people who have all three in the bag.
Really?
He had some guys who had T300s for the 3 and 4, T200s for like the 6 through, I think he said like, I don't know, 8, and then like the 9 and the pitching wedge were T100. So it just, what if it tells me anything? It tells me that no golfers are the same. Mm-hmm. So it's what comes down to. But look, there's a lot of ways to go about it, but at the end of the day, you want to also, we're out there, we're playing golf to have a good time. We're enjoying it. So another part of this equation is just, savor it when it does happen. Especially if you put the work in, you want to be able to enjoy the fruits of your hard work. So when you get out there and you do flush that long iron, man, nothing feels like it. I still remember that one long iron I hit at Watchung Valley, that 5 iron that I put to like 3 feet. Right. I mean, I remember it because one of my greatest shots of the season. And it feels great sticking a wedge close, no doubt. But when you stick one of those, long irons from distance, 200 yards out, man, it feels good. And when you flush it and you just see that ball soar, it gives me chills even thinking about
100%. And for me, now that you bring it up, Ladybank, 18th hole. It was our second round of the day. We were tired. It was getting dark, and it was a weird long par 4 that was a dog leg left, and it didn't have my shot shape. So I put driver away, and Gavin told me to hit hybrid. Yeah. Put one in the middle of the fairway, but I had like 210 left, which is unfortunate, But I ended up hitting the best 5 iron of my life to about 5 feet, and I ended up making a par. No, I'm sorry. Was it a par? Maybe it was a birdie. I don't even know, but I put it to, I think I 2-putted. I think it was a 10. It was like 10 feet or something, I 2-putt, but still to walk out of there with a par after being 205, 210 out in the middle of the fairway, huge win there.
Yeah. And so that's what it really comes out to. The theme to wrap it all up is, can long irons be hard to hit? Absolutely. There's no denying that, but they can also be responsible for some of the best shots you're going to hit out there.
Right.
So it is worth putting the work in. It is worth putting the time in, learning how to hit them, and your game will benefit for it. Think about that. Both of us, those holes, they were the difference between a good and a bad score.
Mm-hmm.
My hole, I had 2 terrible shots on that par 5. I duffed my drive. I duffed my next shot. I mean, it was going downhill really fast. And then I hit this 5-iron and still birdied the hole. So it saved me. It really saved me there. So that's where it's so important to know it. But hopefully this helps you guys. Always give us your feedback. Is there a club that you're hitting better? Is there one of these long irons that you've struggled with? What decision did you make? Did you keep it in the bag? Did you take it out? Did you find a specific drill that helped you? Let us know by posting your thoughts in the Facebook group. We love hearing that. We love getting the conversation going throughout the week. You can also tweet at us at Golficity. Love hearing it. Also, like I said, you can get to the show notes by going to golficity.com/episode 303 or just pulling up in the Golficity app. Guys, if you haven't downloaded the Golficity app, now's the time to do it. It's free. Go to golficity.com/app. We got it for Android, iOS, and all of the best stuff is in there. And you get alerts when new podcasts and new videos drop, and there's so much more coming to Golficity in 2020. We've got 2 new podcasts on the platform. Joe and Frank with the Fitness for the Fairways do an incredible job talking about fitness. I mean, if you really want to dive deep into fitness, they've got some incredible guests.
Oh yeah.
And that is such a key part of performing in this game. And then the Pin High Boys with the Pin High podcast. I listened to that on my way here today.
Yep.
I love just hearing their take on the stuff that's going on around the PGA Tour. Just a really fun take on that. So that's great stuff. And there's going to be even more coming to the platform. So all of that you can get to in the Golficity app, and you can turn on notifications and get alerts when a new podcast or video drops. I think that's my favorite feature of the app.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So good stuff. We appreciate everybody tuning in. And we'll see everybody again next week.